Per capita GDP to reach $20,000 within 15 years. Headquarters of heavy chemical machinery, key axis of the East Coast Economic Belt. Episode 44, Hamhung Growth Outlook Part 2. Creating the Miracle on the Taedong River. North Korea's Workers' Party. Can do a market economy. The Hosang and Toejo districts are designated as new residential, educational, and medical zones. Located in the northern inland region of Hamhung, these two districts are areas where residential and educational functions are concentrated. The master plan develops these districts into the Hamhung Education and Medical New City. The Chemical Engineering University will be developed into the Hamhung International University of Chemical and Materials. It will establish sister university relationships with the Department of Chemistry at KAIST and the Department of Chemical Engineering at Seoul National University in South Korea, and open a joint degree program with RWTH Aachen University in Germany, a world leader in chemical engineering. Chemical and materials engineers produced by this university will lead the innovation of the Hungnam chemical industry. The Koryo College of Pharmacy and the Jongseong Medical College will be modernized to create a medical hub covering the entire East Coast. A new 500-bed Hamhung International Medical Center will be constructed, and medical cooperation agreements will be signed with Asan Medical Center and Samsung Seoul Hospital in South Korea. The scale of investment is approximately 300 billion won for university modernization. 300 billion won for a medical hub, and 1 trillion won for new city infrastructure, totaling approximately 1.6 trillion won. The annual contribution to GDP from education, healthcare, and services is approximately $200 million. Donghungsan District is a specialized zone for IT and digital industries. Located on the eastern mountainous boundary of Hamhung, Donghungsan District is an area with relatively low industrial pollution and a favorable natural environment. The master plan develops this district, home to Hamhung University of Computer Science and Engineering and Hamhung University of Automation, into a special zone for Hamhung's IT and automation industries. Specialized personnel in computer science and automation from these two universities will be deployed to transform the Hungnam chemical plant into a smart factory. Simultaneously, companies specializing in software development, AI data labeling, and the export of industrial automation solutions will be attracted. Positioning it as an East Coast branch of the Pyongyang Yunjong IT Special Zone will allow for the development of Hamhung's IT industry while supplementing Pyongyang's shortage of IT personnel. The investment scale is approximately 500 billion won for the IT Special Zone's infrastructure. The funding source is FDI from South Korean IT companies. The GDP contribution is approximately $100 million annually from IT and software services. The following zone is the East Sea Marine, Fisheries, and Tourism Zone. Located on the East Sea coast east of Hamhung City, it has potential for fisheries and marine leisure. The master plan develops the East Sea coast of the following zone into the Hamhung Marine Leisure and Fisheries Cluster. We will renovate the beaches along the East Sea coast and construct a 4-star coastal resort, 100 rooms. In conjunction with Hungnam Port, we will utilize Hamhung as a port of call for the Wonsan Hamhung Chongjin East Sea Cruise Route. The Hamhung City Fisheries Enterprise catches crabs, fish, and squid. This fisheries industry is being upgraded into an export industry for frozen, smoked, and canned products. By obtaining MSC Sustainable Fisheries certification, it is entering the high-end seafood markets in Japan and Korea. The investment scale for marine tourism and fisheries processing is approximately 300 billion won. The annual GDP contribution from marine tourism and fisheries is approximately $100 million. The Songcheon River District is an outer agricultural and energy zone. Located in the upper reaches of the Songcheon River west of Hamhung, it features agricultural zones and hydroelectric resources. The master plan posits that the Hamhung Plain produces a large volume of rice, while also cultivating apples, barley, wheat, and soybeans. It aims to modernize the agricultural productivity of the Hamhung Plain. It plans to construct 3 to 5 additional small-scale hydroelectric power plants of 10, 30 megawatts each in the upper reaches of the Songcheon River to achieve electricity self-sufficiency for the Hamhung City Center. It also intends to establish an agricultural processing complex for apple juice, jam, dried fruit, and processed rice products. The investment scale for hydroelectric power generation and agricultural modernization is approximately 300 billion won. The annual GDP contribution from agriculture and energy is approximately $50 million. This is the East Coast Economic Belt Master Plan. It is a concept for an industrial, logistics, and tourism axis along North Korea's east coast, connecting Rason-Chongjin-Hamhung, and Wonsan. It is the most important growth axis for North Korea's economic growth following denuclearization. Rason is a hub for trade, light industry, and logistics. Chongjin is a base for heavy chemical, shipbuilding, and energy industries. Hamhung is a key base for petrochemical, machinery, and materials industries. The Wonsan and Mount Hamgyong regions are special zones for tourism, leisure, and high-tech services. Hamhung serves as the central hub for the belt's industrial and chemical functions. It receives petrochemical raw materials from Chongjin to produce high-value added materials and products and connects logistics to Rason and Wonsan. Through the integration of the Rason-Chongjin-Hamhung Railway, Expressway, and power grid, it forms a single massive industrial corridor. The synergy effect of the entire belt is to reduce logistics costs by 40%, achieve vertical integration of industries from raw materials to intermediate goods to finished products, and realize the combined development of tourism, industry, and logistics. The projected economic impact is that the East Coast region's GDP will reach $200 billion in 20 years. In the short term, railway, port, and power infrastructure will be connected. In the medium term, industrial clusters will be specialized, and in the long term, the East Sea Economic Zone will connect South Korea, Russia, China, Japan, and others. If Hamhung succeeds within the East Coast Economic Belt, it will complete the industrial triangle of the North Korean economy, along with Rason trade and Chongjin energy. This is a GDP growth scenario for Hamhung City. We set the starting point as 2027, the year of the denuclearization agreement, with a population of 810,000 and a GDP of approximately 1.4 billion, approximately $1,128 per capita. Hamhung's 5 major growth engines are the chemical industry fertilizers, synthetic fibers, and medicinal chemicals, machinery and IT, fisheries and tourism, education and healthcare, and logistics and ports. We use Ludwigshafen, Germany, as a benchmark for comparison. Ludwigshafen, the headquarters city of BASF, is an example of a city that grew from a single industry city into the world's chemical capital. Hamhung has the potential to become the East Asian version of Ludwigshafen. The base scenario is the Ludwigshafen model, under which a per capita GDP of $20,000 is achieved 25 years after denuclearization. This assumes the modernization of the chemical industry is carried out in stages following denuclearization. 5 years after denuclearization, the Hungnam fertilizer plant resumes operations following emergency repairs. Hamhung Naengmyeon is commercialized as a tourist product. The restoration of the Songchon River waterfront is completed, and the modernization of Hungnam port begins. The city's GDP reaches approximately $3.2 billion, the population 850,000, and the per capita GDP is approximately 3,765. 10 years after denuclearization, the transition to synthetic fibers and medicinal chemistry is completed, the East Coast attracts 300,000 tourists annually, and the Chemical Engineering University R&D cluster becomes operational. The city's GDP reaches approximately $6.5 billion, the population 920,000, and the per capita GDP is approximately 7,065. 20 years after denuclearization, the complete transition to green chemistry is achieved, IT exports are put on the right track, and the Hamhung International Medical Center becomes an East Coast hub. The city's GDP reaches approximately $14.5 billion, with a population of 1.05 million. As the population surpasses 1 million, it becomes North Korea's second metropolitan area. The per capita GDP becomes approximately $13,810. After denuclearization, a per capita GDP of $20,000 is achieved between 2022 and 2025. The city's GDP reaches approximately $23 billion with a population of 1.15 million. The optimistic scenario is a model of explosive growth as a chemical hub decoupling from China, where a per capita GDP of $20,000 is achieved 15 years after denuclearization. This scenario assumes that demand for chemicals and materials decoupling from China by the EU CRMA and the US IRA is concentrated in Hamhung, accompanied by simultaneous investments from large-scale global chemical companies. 5 years after denuclearization, with exports of synthetic spandex $300 million, medicinal chemical APIs $200 million, and fertilizers $500 million, the city's GDP reaches approximately $5 billion, and its per capita GDP reaches approximately $6,471. Under the optimistic scenario, a per capita GDP of $20,000 is achieved in 2042, approximately 15 years after denuclearization. The pessimistic scenario is a model of failure in the conversion of the chemical complex. This scenario involves delays in investment due to negotiations regarding allegations of biochemical weapons, delays in accession to the Chemical Weapons Convention, and environmental risk concerns from Western investors. 10 years after denuclearization, the city's GDP will be approximately $2.8 billion, and its GDP per capita approximately $3,111, and it will take about 45 years after denuclearization to achieve a GDP per capita of $20,000. 5. This is a comprehensive estimate of GDP contribution by industry. It is based on the baseline scenario, 20 years after denuclearization. The chemical industry, fertilizers, synthetic fibers, and medicinal chemicals accounts for approximately $6 billion annually, representing 41% of the total GDP. This is Hamhung's largest single growth engine. Investment of approximately 2.7 trillion won is required. The machinery and IT sector accounts for approximately $2.5 billion annually, representing 17% of GDP. Investment of approximately 500 billion won is required. The logistics and port sector accounts for approximately $2 billion annually, representing 14% of GDP. Investment of approximately 400 billion won is required. The education, medical, and service sector accounts for approximately $2 billion annually, representing 14% of GDP. Investment of approximately 1.6 trillion won is required. The tourism, fisheries, and domestic demand sector accounts for approximately $2 billion annually, representing 14% of GDP. When these figures are combined, the GDP 20 years after denuclearization will be approximately $14.5 billion. The population 1.05 million, and the GDP per capita approximately $13.08. The total investment required is approximately 5 to 6 trillion won, which will be executed in installments over 20 years. Hamhung's decisive distinguishing feature lies in its transformation into the green chemical capital of East Asia. Hamhung and Hungnam are cities with a history of chemical industry spanning nearly 100 years. The Hungnam Chemical Complex, built by Noguchi on a 6 million Pyong site in 1927, remains in operation on the same site to this day. Once denuclearization is achieved, the process of transforming this century-long legacy into a 21st-century green chemical industry will begin. Although the chemical industry requires a large initial investment, once it is on track, it generates stable profits for decades. Just as Germany's BASF transformed Ludwigshafen into the world's chemical capital, the day South Korea's Lotte Chemical, LG Chem, and SK Innovation meet with Germany's BASF and ThyssenKrupp in Hamhung to complete the East Asia Green Chemical Cluster, the idiom Hamhung Chasa. The messenger from Hamhung will cease to be a symbol of something that never returns and will instead become the name of a city of prosperity that has returned. Next time, I will discuss the growth prospects of Chongjin. Thank you.